This is Eric Brotman, the host of Don't Retire, Graduate, the podcast that teaches you how to advance into retirement rather than retreating. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer listeners' questions about personal finance, retirement readiness, and more. We received a question from Jeff, who asked, what are the things we need to do when we're contemplating retirement that might be time-sensitive or urgent? Is there a checklist that we can look at? And Jeff, the answer is yes, there is, and I'll go through those steps now, but you can also find that in Don't Retire, Graduate, the book and the workbook. But here are the steps. Before you retire, or at least before you graduate into retirement and you leave your full-time employment, there are two primary things you want to make sure you've done. One of them is to restructure or reduce your debt. The happiest retirees I know are either debt-free or adverse debt-free, and that's very important. And if you need to refinance a mortgage or any other type of loan, it's much easier to do it while you still have an earned income, because lenders are going to want to see your tax returns, your pay stubs, and all of that. It's much better to have an earned income when you do that. You can retire the next day after the loan gets done, but make sure that's done while you're still working. Second thing is, if you haven't handled your long-term care coverage, whether it's an insurance solution, an annuity solution, or other types of vehicles, if you plan to solve the long-term care puzzle or to put money aside for it specifically, I advise you to do it ideally 5 to 10 years before you retire, but at the very latest, right before you retire, so that you have the wherewithal to set that aside and not have it derail your retirement plan. A lot of people don't like to plan for long-term care. It's expensive, and it means making a withdrawal or taking money out of the financial independence money that's needed for retirement. So it's real important that you plan for that in advance. When you retire, there are going to be a couple of things you need to elect basically right away. The first is Medicare. Now, Medicare Part A, which is the cost-free portion of Medicare, you need to apply for that at your 65th birthday. And you can do that 90 days before or after, but when you turn 65, you need to sign up for Part A of Medicare, even if you're still working and have health insurance someplace else. It's really important that you do that right in line with your birthday. Part B of Medicare, which is the part that you pay for and you elect, you don't have to enroll at any specific age. You're eligible at 65, but if you're still working full-time and you still have benefits through an employer, you don't have to sign up for Medicare Part B until you retire. But when you do, your health insurance is going to stop when you stop working, and even though you can continue it for up to 18 months with the COBRA provision, that tends to be very expensive. So if you leave full-time employment after 65, you're going to want to elect Medicare right away, and that's Part B. If you leave full-time employment before 65, but after 63 and a half, you'll be able to use your COBRA benefits under your employer health plan to get you through to your 65th birthday when Medicare will kick in. For people who leave full-time employment before 63 and a half, having medical insurance, which is so critical, can be very, very difficult. And you have to go on your exchange, or if you're married, you can certainly use your spouse's plan potentially. But that is one of the things that keeps people in the workforce to at least 63 and a half is just frankly health insurance. But make sure you have that covered. The other thing you need to do on or at your retirement date is you need to make elections for your pension if you have one, or for other types of retirement benefits that are for an income. And the reason you have to make that election is that you have to decide how much of that income would go to your spouse in the event he or she was to outlive you. So if you're married, you're going to have to make an election that's either all the money is coming to me, and when I die, my spouse is not getting anything, or my spouse is getting 50% or 70% or 100% of what I would be receiving. And of course, the amount of your benefit will be lower if there's a survivorship on it. So you have to consider things like the age of your spouse, your health, your spouse's health, and so forth, and make this election very carefully. You cannot change it once it's done. This is one of those where it is irrevocable, and once you've made the election, you have to live with it. So it's not something to be taken lightly. Plan for it, work with your financial advisor, and make some good decisions around that. Make sure you have enough wherewithal to take care of your spouse if he or she outlives you. The things that you'll want to do after you retire, one of them is make sure that you filed for Social Security. And we did an office hours 2 weeks ago on Social Security, so I'm not going to go through that in great detail, but it's one of the things you want to consider when you're retiring, when to elect, and that's one of the things you don't want to forget. And particularly if you're 70, don't wait a day past your 70th birthday to elect, because there is essentially, although you get a 6-month mulligan, you don't get extra money by waiting beyond 70. So don't do that. And lastly, there are certain kinds of insurances that'll change when you're retired. One might be life insurance, particularly term insurance. If you've elected your pension, you've elected your Social Security, and you have a financial independence plan, you probably don't need term insurance anymore. It's a bill you don't have to pay in most cases. If you have permanent insurance, whole life or something, then that's something you're likely to want to keep, but you want to plan around that. Other insurances, disability insurance. Once you're no longer working, there's generally no reason to pay for disability insurance. You're going to have enough expenses with health insurance and long-term care. You don't need to pay for disability insurance to protect your income, particularly once you're 65 and or not working. And lastly, little things, your property and casualty, your auto insurance. Sometimes your premiums will go down just by virtue of the fact you're not commuting to work and you're retired. So don't overlook it. It's not going to change your life, but it's certainly nice to save some money on that. So, Jeff, I hope that helps. You can absolutely get in touch with us at bfgfa.com, or you can check out Don't Retire Graduate in print, Kindle, or audio, and we go through this in a whole lot more detail. But I hope this was helpful, and I thank you for your question. If you'd like to send us a question, which we might answer in a future episode of Office Hours, post it on the Don't Retire Graduate Facebook page or tweet us at Brotman Planning. Did you know that Don't Retire Graduate is a book available in print, Kindle, and audio formats, but also is now a workbook with all the steps you need to build your own financial freedom plan? For more information, go to brotmanmedia.com or go to Amazon, buy your copy, and please leave us a review. Thanks for coming to Office Hours. Be sure to tune in for new content every Thursday. For now, this is your host, Eric Brotman, reminding you, don't retire, graduate.
Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC. Kestra IS. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. Kestra AS. An affiliate of Kestra IS. Kestra IS or Kestra AS are not affiliated with Brotman Financial or any other entity discussed.